Hello everyone, welcome back to League of Legends DFS Esports Breakdown for June the 1st. Pretty intriguing slate, all things considered, coming up here. So we'll quickly get through this stuff. I actually got to get out of here when my clock strikes 4, so this should be a relatively short video, hopefully, but yeah, let's go ahead and just get into it. We'll quickly jump into the recap as usual. Let me just find where we were. Can never get these ones right. So the first one up was BLG IG. Again, we had a pretty decently sized favorite, BLG. All things considered, we had the IG bottom lane swap here, which was just really peculiar. I'm not sure what happened here, but I would have to assume something with IG Shinryu getting sick or something, because Wink should not be playing the support role. I know that much, but On actually looked relatively decent coming in as the AD carry. They moved Wink down to support, and that was like that in all 3 games. So I don't know what to make of this. We definitely could or should have seen this one coming potentially. It was just very, very hard to see this happening when you have IG, who's had Wink playing as a traditional AD carry the entire time. So it definitely felt like Wink should have been their AD carry, and I thought they were definitely going to move on to support. But I don't know, it was just a weird situation altogether. We talked about potential possibilities with On as the support. On DraftKings, the odds of him outperforming everyone else was really, really low. But it actually didn't end up panning out that way. He actually scored pretty well as technically their AD carry. I think he was maybe like a number 2 or number 3 actually in the AD carry position, but I digress for that reason, or for that. Again, IG managed to get it close but fall apart in the game 3. They just got destroyed. They got hard destroyed bottom lane in game 3. In what's supposed to be a really safe lane of Senna Seraphine, they just continuously chain died. It was just over very, very quickly. Overall, a little bit of kind of what I anticipated, or some of the problems I had foreseen coming, but again, we were on the underdog. They just couldn't get it done in 3. This is kind of a theme that we have going here. At least from my perspective, I feel like this is the, I don't know, 5th or 6th underdog that we've had who's lost in this 3rd game, who's made the series close but not managed to pull it out. Pretty disappointing, and similarly speaking in the next series as well. OMG won the first game. I thought we were sitting pretty well here. They were playing extremely solid, and then they just kind of collapsed in game 2, and specifically in game 3 they just completely fell apart. Pretty solid performance from RNG ish. I actually, that's kind of not true. I actually don't think this was a great performance from RNG. Again, I still think RNG are relatively overrated as a whole, and there's going to be some spots I think coming up tomorrow where I have a similar feeling as well. But again, we had the pretty sizable underdog. Actually, OMG here was a plus 410, I believe. And they won the first game. It was definitely a close series. I think they definitely had their chances. But again, we had our underdog. They just did not end up coming through in game 3. Pretty tough scenes. I don't know. It's really tough, in my opinion. But that's probably a something to talk about another day when I have a little bit more time, maybe. But it's pretty disappointing. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Over in the LCK. One of our underdogs did actually end up winning it in 3. Hanwha Life got the job done here in the 3rd game. Again, scoring very, very low. One I definitely wanted to avoid, and actually ended up coming out, in our fashion. Frederick Beyond tried out a new jungler this game, I believe, Raptor. I don't believe he was playing for them before. I think it has been empty, but they tried out Raptor this one. Did it end up going their way? I think the Hanwha Life team slot that we talked about in the last video actually ended up coming through as well. I think as the highest scoring team slot at, I believe 61 points. I believe Genji only scored 58 or something. So I actually did tweet out about this as well, but I did actually, in all 4 of my lineups, I had the Hanwha Life team slot 1 off, and it would have been great if my players performed as well, but I think we're on the brink of it, and maybe if a couple of things go our way, we're looking at an entirely different slate. And again, as much as kind of it feels like we've been losing lately, we're in really good spots actually, and I don't want to change kind of how we're thinking or what we're doing too much just because the results aren't coming our way. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier, but next one up was Genji, got the 2-0 over Nongshim. Pretty unsurprising. Genji, I think, was a minus 700 or something favorite. They ended up scoring really poorly when it came to DraftKings. Again, we kind of anticipated that. I had Genji a little bit in DK. They were my quote-unquote safety team. I figured if every other series I foresaw being close, and this one was the most dominant 2-0, then I thought Genji would have outscored everyone in a sweep. They definitely could have. They were the only sweep team, and that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about when I say, we're on the brink of it. Like, I thought, when we look at the slate as a whole, we have Genji minus 700 favorite. We have RNG minus 600 favorite. We have BLG minus 250 favorite. And then we have Frederick Brion minus 150 favorite. Out of all of those games, and I say, I think Genji is going to be the only sweep. And then it comes out and the series is Genji being the only sweep. At the end of the day, that's all you can really do is look at the series, say, this price is a little off, and you put yourself in a good spot. If you say, if you look at the prices and you say OMG was a plus 410 favorite and RNG was a minus 600 favorite, but OMG came out and won game 1, but they couldn't close it out in game 2 or 3. Like, at the end of the day, we had a good read that the series was a lot closer than the odds looked. And we're putting ourselves in good spots, I believe. Maybe the results aren't going our way. Maybe this is a bad philosophy that I'm having, but I believe we're putting ourselves in a good spot here, and we're getting a good read, I think, on a lot of the games. They're just kind of not going our way, and maybe when variance flips a little bit and things are going our way, we're going to be hopefully crushing it here soon. But either way, at the end of the day, I thought Genji would be the only 2-0, and it did end up panning out that way. Their DK scores are pretty low, however, so didn't end up going our way there, and it kind of is what it is. Pretty interesting game here, or games we could talk about coming up. So this is something I was kind of just talking about and alluding to. When we look at these games, like, I don't know, I just feel a little crazy because I've been doing this League of Legends DFS stuff for probably 4 years, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. I don't even know. It's been a while, but I've been here for a while, long before like the COVID jump and all that stuff. I've been grinding this League of Legends DFS stuff for a long time, and I can't remember a time when I loved underdogs all the time like I kind of do now, and it's a little concerning. The reason I bring this up is because I just, like, when I look at both of these series, I could make a pretty solid case, in my opinion, of AL beating V5, and I could honestly make a pretty compelling case maybe for TT to look to beat RNG here or EDG here as well. Am I going to? Maybe one of these two. I'm not sure, but it's odd. Like, if you guys have been following for a while, you guys will know I don't love to just jam in underdogs just to jam in underdogs. I'll pick what I pick, and whatever happens. And I think similar to yesterday, I think there's a pretty solid case for these underdogs here as well. And I'm a little taken back by the odds on these ones. EDG minus 700 and V5 minus 600 versus TT and AL. We'll just go ahead and go kind of series by series here and talk why I think these price tags are a little bit off, in my opinion, and maybe look at seeing which one of these underdogs is the one we'd like to go with, if either. But we'll just go in order. We'll go with EDG versus TT. So EDG, as you guys know, has been a team that I've not been too high on since the MSI break. I thought they've been looking relatively weak so far. They've been pretty carried hard by by Viper, in my opinion. I think they definitely could have lost to IG. I think they definitely could have lost to BLG. They did end up losing to JDG. Their wins are over FPX, IG, FPX, Weibo, BLG, and IG. So I don't think their wins have been too impressive yet so far. But on the flip side, it's not like TT has been doing much either. They've lost to JDG, then they beat WE, they lost in 3 to LNG, and they lost to V5. Overall, I actually think when you look at these kind of their results so far, and I don't know, this feels a little bit silly to kind of look at results and kind of get a gauge, but I feel like it actually can tell you a good bit of kind of all we're trying to gauge here is just kind of where teams are within the context of the league, seeing about where their skill level is, and trying to compare them to each other. So if we go game by game here, TT, they lost to JDG, who's looking like maybe the best team in the league at the moment. They beat WE, he's looking like the worst team in the league at the moment, or bottom 2 maybe. Then they got in a close 3-game series, but lost to LNG, who's probably upper but not crazy. So they're probably, they beat the worst. They lost to the best, so it puts them anywhere in the middle. Then they got in a close 3-game series with a kind of mid to upper team in LNG, so that probably leaves them here in the like 8, 9, 10 region. And again, they got swept by V5, who's probably looking like the number 2 team. So relatively speaking, it looks like, in the context of the whole league, they're probably in this kind of middle tier, in this middle area, probably like 8, 9, 10, 11, this kind of area, in my opinion. Maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe this area. So if we're looking at the context of the whole league and we say TT is probably in like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we're looking at EDG and we do something similar and we say they barely beat BLG, who's in this similar boat. They barely beat IG, who's about here, but I think is in a similar area. They 2-0'd Weibo, who is, again, wildly inconsistent, but they're probably in the middle upper as well. And then they 2-0 to FPX, who's all the way down here, or 2-1 to FPX, who's all the way down here. And then they themselves got swept by JDG, who is the number 1 team. So based on how their games have been going as well, they're probably in the middle upper, but probably not too far apart. And that's why I kind of view that in such a way, is if I think EDG's like in the 6, 7, 8, 9 range in terms of actual skill, or like how they've been playing in an actual like performance. If I say EDG's probably the 6th to 9th best team in the league, and then I say TT's either like the 8th to 12th best team in the league, then that definitely leaves them relatively close to each other within the context of the league, and playing each other here. And when I look at that context, and we have EDG who's a -700 and TT who's +445, it just feels pretty misleading here. Granted, TT they're 1-3. They were the worst team in the league last split, I believe, right? They were like 1-16 or something. Oh yeah, 3-13, bottom team in the league. I wonder if that's still affecting them at the moment. Like, not them per se, but their price tag when it comes to DraftKings, when it comes to their Vegas odds and stuff. I feel like that kind of worst team in the league mantra is still sticking with them, and I don't think they're that bad. It's definitely a tough case to make. Like, I definitely still think EDG is the better team, but in the context of the league and everything that we're looking at, I think overall TT is underrated, EDG is overrated. So I do think, when we do look at that as a whole, I do think it's just a lot closer than the odds are giving. Does EDG probably just win this and 2-0? They have better players in pretty much every aspect. Yeah, they probably do. But I don't know. I just am kind of having an internal battle here, of like, when I look at these odds, I see TT is a pretty solid value. Again, I think EDG are pretty overrated. I see TT as a pretty underrated team, more so from the odds makers and that area. I think people are giving TT a little bit of credit here and there, but overall, I don't think EDG should be this big of a favorite. I could definitely see EDG like a -320 or something like that. That definitely makes a lot more sense. Like, if this was EDG -320, TT -230, you're probably having a normal conversation where you think it's probably just an EDG 2-0 and you move along. But at -700 +445, you're asking for EDG to win this, like, I don't know, 85% of the time or something. And I just don't know if that is actually the case. And that's kind of all it comes down to here for me. TT are replacing their top laners. They are bringing in Hoya. They're replacing Xiaosheng, the former EDG top laner, I believe. So he's not getting his moment. Yeah, former EDG top laner Xiaosheng is not going up against his former team. They're bringing in Hoya. That's kind of intriguing. I'm not sure what is prompting this, but I don't think Xiaosheng was a particular needle mover either way. So I could definitely see this top lane change not affecting too much. Top lane is, in my opinion, the least impactful role when it comes to where you want your impact players. So I'm not too concerned with that. For right now, I am just going to say I'm going to take the tentative approach of looking at this underdog pretty well, and I'm going to have some exposure to TT one way or the other. I do like I just think EDG is overrated, TT is underrated, and we're probably looking at like a sub 10% really large underdog here. And I think they could definitely do it. I don't think EDG is as formidable and unbeatable as the kind of as they're perceived to be, because they won Worlds last year. That thing that residually is carrying over, and they're still looked at as a really dominant team. They are much better than TT. I can't point at anything really specifically in game and say TT do this better than EDG. I don't think there is that much of an area where I could say that. So for that reason, I do think EDG probably win. They probably get the 2-0, but at this price tag, it just feels a little crazy to me, and I'm going to take some level of underdog, especially with DFS in mind. I'm going to take the shot there with TT a little bit, and I just think they're going to be something I mix and match with it a little bit as well. Now for the main event, in my opinion, AL versus V5. So been a turbulent road here with AL. They are currently on a win-loss, win. So it looks like they are due for a loss if they continue following their win-loss trajectory. This one just feels pretty similar to me in terms of where we look at these teams as a whole. This one's in a kind of different manner. If we were to do the similar exercise that we just did with EDG-TT, pretty much to sum it up, and we'll skip, kind of everything that we just went over, but to sum it up, I think AL is in a pretty similar vein to TT, and they're like the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range, or like a pretty solid, maybe playoff contending team, but not too scary themselves. However, I think V5 has been playing extremely well. They are probably in this top 3 area, so I definitely would be more looking at V5 to a little bit more comfortably in that sense. My problem and caveat here is that who has V5 played? I don't think they've not played anyone. I think they've arguably had the easiest cakewalk schedule out of anyone in the league, and it's probably not even remotely close. So when I think of the worst 3 teams in the league, the bottom 3 teams who stand out as the bottom 3 teams, I think WE, I think FPX, I think LGD. V5 have 2-0'd all 3 of these teams. Their only real competition has been RNG, and granted this was a pretty solid win for them. I can't take anything away from that. I do think these are 2 pretty strong teams, V5 and RNG, but and they played TT, who's, again, probably not that strong either, so overall, it looks like their record and their stuff has been pretty inflated. I think they've played 4 non-playoff teams in TT, LGD, FPX, WE. They've played 1 true series, and it was pretty good. I'll give them credit. They are looking good. Like, you don't 2-0 everybody for no reason. You're going to be significantly better than them, for sure. But it's not like AL is as much of a pushover as these other as the rest of these teams are. I mean, granted, they did get 2-0'd by LGD, who I'm claiming as the worst team in the league. AL is just wildly inconsistent, wildly up and down, and specifically what they do is they are a really, really solid DFS option. They are specifically and almost purposefully made to be solid DFS options. They push the pace, they play with pressure, they group up, they over push these things. They push every advantage that they think they have, and a lot of times it backfires. Sometimes it does, sometimes it works out for them. I just think this is again a pretty open series. Um, and it's just one where we kind of have to look as if, sometimes we have to think about these games. Think about like if we were to wake up tomorrow and see the scoreline, what scenario would you think is that crazy? You'd probably be pretty surprised if AL and or TT won. I just would not be that shocked. Like it's something where we kind of have to look at these and say there was some red flags there. Did we choose to ignore them? Are we choosing to ignore them? Are we leaving them up? Are we acknowledging them but maybe not signifying them as that problematic? So the red flags here are or the possibilities, and I guess kind of like red flags are V5. They've not played anyone other than RNG, and that was a relatively, it was a pretty good series, but it was one out of their 5 series that they've been truly pressured in. One and then the next one up is AL is extremely volatile, and we see them get these big underdog wins relatively consistently. We know that they have the perfect playstyle to pull these underdog upset wins off, because they push their advantages so hard. They can make the games very one-sided in their fashion. Although it is a small percentage of the time, it is definitely in their wheelhouse to do these things. So if we were to wake up tomorrow, see AL 1-2-1, and we look back and say, oh, you know what, V5 actually, they haven't really played that many teams. Are we sure that they're that great? And also we look back and we say, oh, you know what, AL do have a history of kind of being up and down. They do have this potential. And the writing was on the wall that maybe this series was actually kind of close and we just didn't realize it. That's kind of like how I like to kind of view these things is, maybe this series is actually a little bit closer than it looks, for those reasons I just mentioned. And for that reason, I'm going to load up some AL. For me, I'm going to be mixing and matching strictly this LPL matches, all in different ways other than double favorites. I'm going to avoid V5 and EDG in the same lineup, but I'm willing to go with all 4 of these LPL teams, and I'm just going to strictly call it there. I'm just going to leave it as all the LPL teams is kind of where I'm looking at. My time is getting a little bit low here, so I'm trying to speed run this last part. My apologies, but after we crunch the numbers a little bit, we could see that AL V5 is the number 1 game in the on the slate. We're looking at over 25 kills per map. We could see DRX T1 is actually pretty decent there as well at 24, and then TT EDG is close to them at 23.7, and then Dom1 KT is all the way down at 20. So I'm completely avoiding Dom1 KT other than of course mixing and matching some team slot. I like Dom1 team slot here. Again, I think they've scored pretty well themselves. DRX T1, I definitely think it's a one where you can mix and match. I'm intrigued to see their odds. T1 is only minus 285 now. I wish I had a little bit more time to kind of break that one down as well, because I do want to talk about this one. I think Dom1 KT I don't want to go into too much. I think this is a strict just Dom1 2-0 most likely. It would be pretty surprising to see anything else. I do think Dom1 is just a lot better than KT, and when I look at like the context of all of these games, I feel like Dom1 is the most dominant 2-0 out of all these matches, and their price tag is like medium level compared to everyone else's. T1 DRX is interesting. I do quickly want to touch on it just because, we look at this and we see, we see T1 who's just come off the KDF loss, and you guys know I've been preaching that the T1 is a little bit overrated song for quite a while now, and they do finally end up dropping this KDF one, but I mean DRX just lost to Live Sandbox as well. Like, they're not looking too crazy themselves, and for that, I just don't want much part of this. I think T1 probably bounce back and get a pretty solid 2-0 here. But honestly, just who knows? The LCK feels so random to me at the moment. DRX is looking like a pretty solid 4th place team, and then they lose to Live Sandbox, and T1 just came off losing to KDF. Like, I just don't know what to make of either of these teams. it's just a level of randomness I just don't want to really get involved with, and it's not like the scoring is that crazy that we want to be involved in it. And although the stats are looking relatively decent, I'm just not getting involved here too much with that. So I'm overall just going to be looking probably just towards these matches, and we'll leave it there. So V5, anyone's legend, EDG, and who are they playing? They're playing a TT, of course. So we'll look at the players, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. And, as we typically do. As we can see, AL's grouping is pretty strong. Betty, Chocho, Xiaohao, and Forge, all above 70%. Really solid stuff. For TT, Puff and Southwind, bottom lane pretty well. Photic and Viper, of course, pretty solid 80 carries. Top laners, they're all at the bottom. Looks like they're all above 60% though, so they're definitely viable for sure. ZDZ, Flandre, we don't know what Hoya's champion pool is going to look like, but I can't imagine it's going to be too much worse from Xiaoshang, so that's just something to keep in mind. I mean, it looks like JJ, Scout, PP God, these are all relatively low. Looks like V5's overall numbers or groupings are pretty low. AL's groupings are pretty strong. TT's groupings are pretty strong. We could see UCal, Beishuan, Puff, and Southwind all up there as well. So I definitely don't mind mixing and matching some AL and TT. I would try to avoid a double favorite of V5 and EDG. They're both wildly big favorites, so it'd be pretty bad to build with either way, in my opinion. But there's possibilities there. But unfortunately, that kind of is all the time I have for today. I do have to get going, so apologies for a shorter, not as informational video for me today, but hopefully you guys can get enough information. And if you guys have any questions, of course, as always, either leave them in the comments or tweet me, or however you want to get in contact with me. I'll be able to hopefully answer you guys out through the day. But that'll be it for me today. Pretty intriguing one, honestly. Again, I'm riding with both of the LPL underdogs here, both really big favorites. I just hope maybe one of them come through, and we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I'll take the shot with both of them. Probably not together, but I'll maybe mix and match a lineup of them together with AL and TT. I'm leaving KT Dom1 alone altogether outside of probably Dom1 team slot. I like to get in T1 DRX, maybe. Those numbers, I can't imagine Dom1 or DRX T1 will be that great. I could definitely see this one going 3, and I could see T1 winning it in 3. And I think in that scenario, I probably just don't want to have any involvement at all. So, yeah, it'll just be a lock and load. I think a lot of and mix and match with these LPL teams, and that'll be what I'm looking forward to tonight. So, that'll be it from me tonight. I will see you guys all again tomorrow, so hopefully for like a little bit more of a regular video. But yeah, I think that'll be it, and I'll see you guys all then.